The painting you're about to see was made without a camera, without a photograph to copy from, and without any real way to freeze the scene it depicts, even for a single second. And yet, the moon glows exactly the way it would through drifting cloud. The river holds a reflection so precise it looks captured rather than painted. Every spire sits exactly where it stood. Every distant window carries its own small flicker of light. And the longer you look at it, the harder it becomes to believe that a human being working alone in a studio could have gotten every single detail this right. This work is called View of Dresden by Moonlight. It was painted by the Norwegian artist Johan Christian Dahl in 1839, and today it is held at the Galerie Neue Meister in Dresden, Germany. Johan Christian Dahl was, in his own lifetime, one of the most respected landscape painters working anywhere in Europe. And yet today, he is an artist that almost nobody outside Norway and Germany really knows by name. He's often described as the father of Norwegian landscape painting, the artist credited with starting what historians now call the golden age of Norwegian art. But almost none of his most important work was actually painted in Norway. In 1818, Dahl settled in Dresden, and it was there, not in Norway, that he would spend nearly the rest of his life. He became close friends with Caspar David Friedrich, the leading German romantic painter of the era. But where Friedrich painted allegory and solitude, lone figures turned away from us, staring into fog and infinity, Dahl painted something different. He painted what was actually there. Even so, Dahl never stopped thinking of himself as a Norwegian painter working in exile. Almost every major fjord, mountain, and storm he painted from memory in his Dresden studio was Norwegian, even if he himself rarely set foot back in the country. This is the detail that sets Dahl apart from almost every other romantic landscape painter of his generation. While his contemporaries built scenes out of imagination and symbolism, Dahl built his out of direct, obsessive observation. For years, he carried a paint box outdoors and painted the sky itself, clouds caught in the middle of changing weather, sometimes finishing a study in under an hour before the light shifted completely. Some of these sketches are inscribed with the exact date, even the hour they were painted. A moonlit sketch of the Elbe River, now in the Metropolitan Museum's collection, carries the date January 6, 1826, written in his own hand in the corner. A night so cold that historians still aren't sure whether he stood on the riverbank to paint it or relied on memory once he got back indoors. Across Europe, in England, a painter named John Constable was doing almost exactly the same thing at almost exactly the same time, standing in open fields, recording clouds with something close to scientific precision. Neither man is known to have ever seen the other's work, and that obsession with direct observation is exactly what makes View of Dresden by Moonlight so hard to explain. When we look at the painting, the city sits silhouetted along the far bank of the Elbe. We can make out the dome of the Frauenkirche, the spires of the Dresden Cathedral, and the long stone arches of the Augustus Bridge crossing the water, its lower arches lit faintly by fires burning near the boats moored beside it. More small fires burn along the near riverbank, where a handful of figures and horses stand at the water's edge. And in the foreground, almost easy to miss, a lone woman sits quietly on the grass, watching the same scene we are watching. The moon itself is only partly visible, wrapped in drifting cloud, and its light falls onto the river in a long, broken column that seems to genuinely move the longer you look at it. This is not a flat, symmetrical reflection. It behaves the way moonlight on water actually behaves, fractured, shifting, alive. Even the sky refuses to be simplified. The clouds are not one uniform mass, but dozens of separate forms, each catching the light differently depending on how thick or how thin it is at that exact point. exactly the kind of detail you would only notice if you had spent years actually watching clouds pass in front of a moon. And here is the detail that should stop you. This was not Dahl's first attempt at this exact view. As early as 1823, he had already painted an earlier version of Dresden under moonlight, which means that for at least 16 years, Dahl kept returning to the same impossible problem, holding on to a moment of moonlight that, by its very nature, cannot last more than a few minutes before the clouds shift, before the moon moves, before the fires along the bank burn down. He was not copying a photograph. He was painting a memory of something he had likely watched dozens of times, distilled into a single, permanent image. This same instinct runs through nearly all of Dahl's most famous landscapes. In December of 1820, while staying near Naples as a guest of Prince Christian Frederick, Dahl witnessed Mount Vesuvius erupting. He climbed the volcano repeatedly just to sketch it up close, and over the following years, he used those sketches to complete at least 7 separate finished paintings of the eruption, each one rebuilt from a memory of something that lasted only moments. In 1827, he painted Winter at Sognefjord, one of the earliest large-scale depictions of a Norwegian fjord frozen under snow. And in 1850, aging and in poor health, he made one last journey back to his homeland, returning with paintings like Kjell I Valdres, rendered with the same close, exact observation that had defined his entire career. Something else is worth knowing. Dahl finished View of Dresden by Moonlight in 1839. That same year, in Paris, the French government publicly revealed a new invention to the world, a process that could fix an image of reality directly onto a metal plate without a single brushstroke. It was called the daguerreotype, and it is considered the birth of photography. While Europe was marveling that a machine could finally capture the world exactly as it looked, a Norwegian painter in Dresden had already spent close to 2 decades doing something remarkably similar, by hand. Maybe that's what makes this painting so hard to look at without asking questions. Not because it's hiding some deeper meaning, but because it does the opposite. It insists there is nothing hidden here at all. Just a moon, a river, a city, and a man who trained his eye for years to hold on to light long enough to paint it. I would love to know which of Dahl's paintings you find hardest to believe was made entirely by hand, and whether you think a scene like this could ever really be painted rather than photographed. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.